thank you so much for coming. I hope everybody is staying safe and is getting vaccinated soon or hasn't already. For this particular workshop, the main thing I want you to think about is how to stand out. So imagine you are at a particular company and you are looking at resumes. Depending on the company, depending on the organization, you can get hundreds of resumes, even if you just get a few dozen. We're all very busy, especially people who are looking for somebody to hire. And resumes start to look the same. They start to blur. Imagine just even getting 50 resumes for one position. And you have to flip through each and every one of them to figure out which one you're going to choose or which few are you going to choose. Now, my first question is this, and anybody can answer. Does a resume get you or no? And if it's yes, then why? And if it's no, then why? Does a resume actually get you a job? Anybody? Please go ahead and answer. What do you think? I'll sit here till doomsday, folks.
I think yes, because it's the first impression a company sees is your resume. They don't see you, they don't talk to you, they just see your resume. And that's why they call you or not, they don't call you. I think that's the reason they call you to do an interview with you. So if your resume is good, I think it helps you to get a job.
All right. So thank you very much. Said something extremely intelligent. So I hope that you heard what we just said, which is this. It gets you the interview. Okay. So that is what you are trying to do. So that is an extremely intelligent thing that was just said. Most people don't get that answer very well. So thank you very much. Extremely good input. That is extremely correct. The resume is the goal to get the interview. And an interview is a different, Oprah, but right now we're just thinking we want to get our face in the door. So this is the first step. So there are several steps to actually getting a job. Obviously, the first one is you have to choose which jobs you want to apply to, but just think the entire time that you're writing this resume or you're creating a resume. What is my goal? They want to be impressed enough by me to bring me in and speak to me. I'm trying to get an interview. So for every single step that I'm going to be showing you here today, that is your goal. Interview, interview, interview. Extremely intelligent answer. Okay. So how to make, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a way you could make your slides full screen? Can you hit the
I thought it was. I'm so sorry. Let's see here.
Sorry about that.
Does that work?
No, we're getting the I think you might have your other screen shared. We're seeing so down in the lower right hand corner there's a presentation icon.
Yes. Okay. Let me try that again. So I did put full screen. All right, let me stop sharing for just a second, folks. It's not
all right. Sorry about the interruption.
That's okay. So, all right. So I'm going to save here. All right. So let me go here. It was full screen on mine, folks. I do apologize that it was not on yours. So let me go here. Present. Okay. A window. Now, let me know if this works. Does that work?
We're still seeing the non-full screen.
That is really odd.
I think it's the present mode, like on the right corner, like he said, there is a little like presentation button icon.
You're right. I'm hitting that, and I'm hitting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm hitting. Present a window, and then when I go, let's see. Maybe I can do here. Boom. I'll hit this one instead of that. Okay. Okay. Is it working now?
There it is. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you
Yes,
for your
yes.
patience, folks. Sorry, that's the technical. So, do you see a screen, a full screen saying make your resume stand out?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
we do
So,
now.
all right. So the rules here from the evidence of Indeed and Monster and the types of websites that have been looking at millions of resumes, not just thousands, are these 4 rules. And I'm going to give you some specific examples of resumes in just a second. Number 1, that less is more. That actually is kind of true, but not exactly. I'm going to get more specific when it comes to this. Number 2, customize to the job requirements. Number 2 is always correct. So folks, listen to me very carefully. If you remember nothing from this workshop, remember rule number 2. Okay? If you learn nothing else from this workshop other than rule number 2, I will have done my job. When I was at the UCLA Career Center, okay, it's the largest career center in the United States. The biggest mistake that people make is they do not make the resume to the job. Okay? There was a gentleman who was applying for a sales position, and his entire resume was showing that he had these little, jobs on campus. And that was very nice that he had worked on campus as a student, but it had nothing to do with the job he was applying for. And I spoke to him. He says, well, I've never had a sales position before. I said, well, it's actually a way to have a resume written for the job, even if you don't have experience. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. But please always look at the qualifications for the job. If those qualifications are not on your resume, they're not going to consider you. Okay? Highlighting your achievements. Now, rule number 3, people get into trouble because they are modest. All right? Vanity may be a sin, but pride is not. There is a difference. Okay? Vanity is exaggerating constantly all day long, wanting to talk about how wonderful you are. It is okay, in fact, very appropriate to be proud. What you have accomplished legitimately, honestly, needs to be on your resume. So if you're super modest, you don't even like to be proud, you need to take that, modesty emotion and throw that in the garbage for an hour or 2 or however long it takes you to write your resume, and make sure that your achievements are on there. Okay? Remember the web, especially when it comes to LinkedIn. All right? Nowadays, people are looking at LinkedIn to verify and check out more about your background. The other thing is there anything embarrassing on your website? There's a guy I know, he's a good friend of mine. He had a very silly photograph of himself in his underwear on Facebook playing a guitar. Not that he doesn't have the right to do that, but I referred him to a pretty serious position, to a corporation. They looked at his Facebook page. They refused him. Of course, we should have the right to put anything we want on social media. Having said that, folks, social media is now out there. And if there's anything embarrassing or they think is immature or what have you, they're going to look at that. HR does a full background. One of the biggest things that happens to a lot of folks is they get tagged. You're at a party, maybe you're messing around, you're having fun or whatever. Somebody tags you looking silly. Just check out your social media. What do you have? Do you have Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is you have? Is there anything on there that would make somebody scratch their heads and not want to hire you? But the web can be a great, great tool to also enhance who you are. If you have a great Facebook page, if you have a great LinkedIn page, these things are fantastic tools to highlight your achievements and what you have done. This reinforces your resume. This reinforces who you are. Okay? But rule number 2, as far as writing resumes, by far the most important. Okay. Resume rules. Okay. So this is again from Monster Indeed and these types of folks who are looking at millions of resumes. And as you can see, the style and design and these kinds of things, they're somewhat important. Okay. Substance. All right. I would say that substance is even more important. However, it is true that if you don't write something well, that this is something that can be lost. So you must again go back to rule number 2, substance. Is it substantive what is on your resume? Does it matter to the person who's reading it? All right. Let's move on. Black and white are colorful resumes. It does look like that most folks prefer black and white. 27% say colors are fine. Now, having said this, some people will say, Todd, I want my resume to stand out, and if I have colors on there, you better believe they're going to pause and look at it. So this is a statistic from Resume Builder, but let me go ahead and pause because some people will say to me, my colleagues, well, Todd, the reason that people are saying black and white only is because that's what they're used to. People like things that are familiar. And so I disagree with this because I know if I have, a resume that has some colors on it, like maybe half of it is green, like the one on the right here, that, hey, it's going to at least stand out. But maybe some HR person will say, well, this is inappropriate and dismiss it. So I'm, given the statistics here, I'm actually slightly torn. I understand what they're saying, but I also understand what my colleagues say. So this is one of the first frames that there are rules that are debatable. So I'd like to just hear from a couple of you. What do you think? Some of you have actually had to look at resumes. Would you be okay, or would you think a resume would stand out if it was partly in color, like a frame or some of the text and so forth? Or do you think, no, it is appropriate only to have a black and white resume? So just a couple of you, I just want you to chime in. And again, there's no right or wrong answer per se on this. Let's just get some opinions about this. This is one way to perhaps get your resume to stand out. So anybody, what do you think?
Fine.
Okay, we got one that says his color is fine. Thank you very much. Somebody else, please.
I also have my resume in color, and I think it's nice to have color. Like, I also agree that it's gonna stand out if you have color in it.
Can you tell us what colors you use?
I have like a light blue,
Uh-huh.
the sides, like this one, kind of like similar to this one that you show.
Right. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I like it in color too, because I think like your resume is like, though you're not presenting yourself, but it's like showing part of your characteristic, like how you use the color and how you manage everything. So I think it can leave people with deeper impression with you. So that's my opinion.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, so do know if you do use colors, green is a color I think they're showing here because green is supposed to be about, very much warmth and parental, and it's supposed to evoke in psychology testing very pleasing feelings. Blues are supposed to calm a person down and make a person feel very serene. And again, this is generalizing, but there actually have been some studies on this. And red, when we see red, it's like really, really pay attention to this. And of course, red is referred to as stop signs, stop lights, danger, warning. But you'll notice that some advertisers use red because we can't help but look at the red. I would, because they are looking at your resume, probably refrain from reds just for that reason, although it can be convincing with advertising. One of the things I would say is I'm not against colors at all, but I would be against a lot of different colors. If you have a lot of different colors, they might think that that's a bit much, that you're trying to over-impress. So if you do use colors, I think something like this, having one color, and then the rest of it is in black and white, would probably suffice for the purposes. But here's what I would definitely say. If you are, let's say, applying to 20 different positions, and I have a friend who can't get a job, which is code for, oh, Todd, I can't get a job. That is code for he hasn't sent out enough resumes. Of course he can't. That's just code for he hasn't sent out enough resumes. I said, how many resumes have you sent out? He said, oh, like 10 or 12. I said, send 100. I have never had a client, a student, a friend, a colleague send 100 resumes that I have reviewed. Now, I have to review your resume. You send 100 resumes that I've reviewed, you're going to get an interview. It's just, it's never happened in the decades I've been doing this. Okay. So what I said to him, send 50 resumes in black and white, send 50 with color. You can A/B test yourself. He's like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. So you can send some in black and white, send some in color, and it'll be kind of fascinating to see who responds to you. Not mean that by all the reason that they respond to you, but you can say, you know what, I can test this. It can be either or both. All right, moving on. So I find it interesting for this that 77% like a two-column
We talked
resume.
about like
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, hello? Somebody have a question?
sorry, we talked about using yeah, okay. Yeah.
What? Does somebody have a question?
Can you hear me?
Might be present by accident. His microphone.
Oh, okay.
We can
Oh,
probably
okay.
mute him.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Does somebody have a question? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I do.
Does
So
somebody-
you talked about like personalizing based on the Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can. Go ahead.
So what if like you follow the color based on like the color of the company logo of the maybe the company logo of the company that you're trying to apply, you follow the color theme that they currently use. I don't know, maybe something work for a creative job or advertising job.
You know what, folks? That's a heck of a great idea. That's a heck of a great idea. And let's give credit where credit is due. I have not heard that idea before. So what he's saying is you look at the color theme of the logo of the company, and you would use that same color in the resume. That's a great idea.
That's a very good idea.
That's an extremely good idea. So it does remind me that somebody said, well, Todd, when I applied for Chet Holmes, they said, who do you admire in the business world? I said, well, Chet Holmes. What book did you read? I read his book. So if you do something that is similar to the company itself, that is extremely advantageous. And that, led to my work. So that's an extremely good idea. Thank you, young man. So the idea, if you are going to use color, use the logo, colors, theme
Todd,
on the resume. Go ahead.
Todd, can I add on to that real quick?
Sure.
So I actually saw on Twitter, there was a girl, she was a fresh grad out of, I think it was UCLA. She graduated with like computer engineering. She really wanted a job from Spotify.
Right.
So she posted a Spotify themed resume on her Twitter account. And someone that worked like HR in Spotify actually reached out, and she got an interview through Twitter because of her Spotify themed resume.
So she's stealing some of my thunder right now because we're going to talk about that later, but that's an extremely brilliant idea that she's talking about. So she just said, folks, listen, using social media to get yourself out there. So we're going to talk about later, but thank you for bringing that up, is that when you hand in your resume, there's different ways to hand it in. 99%, I couldn't find an exact statistic, but I would bet a good deal of money, nearly 100% of folks either post it on Monster, jobs.com, or they email their resume to HR and they think they're done. That does not stand you out. So I hope you heard her story. This young lady apparently wanted to get, a job. She put it on Spotify. brilliant, and that made her stand out. How many people will actually do that? Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story. I hadn't actually heard that story before, but I've heard stories like that. So we're going to talk about handing in resumes in a second, but yes, handing in your resume in a different way is going to make you stand out. So again, folks, 77%. I was actually surprised by this. Did not used to be the case. This stat has changed, but this is a recent statistic. Prefer the 2-column. And there's different reasons for that, but I won't get into all that kind of stuff. And only 5% prefer the single column. So I would consider a 2-column resume. And I'm going to show you different ones that are traditional and a 2-column as well. And again, some people might believe, you know what? I understand that 77% prefer 2-column, but for my purposes, I really do need to do a single column. So again, it's not completely engraved in stone. It's just something to consider. Finally, we're going to go through this as well. There's a standard, no preference, and creative. I will say this, the creative type of styles can be kind of hard to read and hard to follow. You don't want to be so creative that it's hard to figure out what is on your resume. Like I can't even, see exactly where their contact information is, or, it can get too creative. It can get like, a Pollock painting or something. You don't want to be too Andy Warhol here. You want to be fairly straightforward regardless of what it is that you use. You want to make sure that it's easy to read, it's clear, and something that's, uniformed. And I do agree with that. And this is from Resume Lab. All right. Work experience, again, the substance is what is most important. Okay. And we're going to talk about the other sections in just a second. All right. And work experience to education, to skills, to resume profile. And we were talking about resume profiles, but as you can see, regardless of what profile you use, it is your experience and the substance that you are going to put down there. Now, the good news is that work experience and education are the two most important. You're with International American University, accredited, diverse. We've won awards. So this is good news. So you guys are already ahead of the game. Okay? So we need to emphasize that. I'm going to show you how in just a second. Should you add matrix and figures to illustrate your achievements? Yes. Okay. So I talked about rule number 2 earlier. Okay. Make your resume really apply to the job that you're applying for. If your resume doesn't have numbers on it, there's a problem. Okay. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. Numbers need to be on your resume. Okay. If you don't have numbers on your resume, not just your phone number, but if you don't have different kinds of numbers to illustrate your achievements, there is a problem. Okay, I'm a big, big believer in this. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. All right, this is a way to make your resume stand out. Okay, when writing a resume, should you address the hiring manager or the recruiter HR person? Okay, this is another big problem with folks who are writing resumes. Who's the decision maker? Who's the gatekeeper? Okay. Whenever you are communicating with anybody, it is okay to say, who's the hiring manager? Who do I need to send this resume to? Sometimes resumes get lost in HR. It is okay. You send it to HR. If you know that, Susan Tan is the other decision maker for this position, mailing her a resume saying, I have sent this to HR. I wanted to give you the liberty of having a copy as well. Thank you so very much, Ms. Tan. And, sincerely, Todd, so that that the right person got the resume. Do it in a very friendly, professional manner. Who is the decision maker? Who is actually going to make the ruling whether you get an interview or not? Things get lost in HR all the time. All the time. If you can figure out a way in a professional, non-intrusive way who the gatekeeper is, make sure that person has a copy of your resume and cover letter. All right? Resume rules, okay? 90% of professional resumes say that you shouldn't include a list of hobbies and interests if you have more than 5 years of experience. It's not that it's necessarily a bad thing to put hobbies on there, but if it's interfering with you putting more substantive things on your resume, that's why a lot of professionals are saying don't put it on there. Having said that, if you know that the hiring manager loves to bowl and you are a bowler, then maybe putting it on there, okay? You shouldn't list your resume according to 89% of resume writers, or excuse me, you shouldn't list references according to 89% of resume writers. That's true, but not true, and we're going to talk about that in a second. 88% say don't think the phrase references available upon request is necessary. They know you have references. You don't need to put that on the bottom. And then here you have the different kinds of fonts. I would just say use the font that you think looks the best. Arial's my least favorite. I do agree with that. People like Calibri. But I want you to go, I'm saving the last one for the top here. 2-page resumes. I was surprised. They are nearly 300% more likely to score an interview than a single pager. Why is that? If you have a 2-page resume, it's probably going to stand out. Now, I wouldn't say have a 2-page resume if you don't have anything to put on there, and make sure that the instructions don't say 1 page only. So that is what I would say, is that if you can put 2-page on there, great. If the instructions say 1 page only and you send something more than 1 page, they're not going to consider you because they're going to think to themselves, this person cannot follow instructions. So you want to follow the instructions of the resume rules that they put on the job listing. But if you can't put a 2-pager, no problem. A lot of HR folks say 1 page only. So just make sure you take a look at that rule. All right. Here is a chronological resume. All right. The objective, and then you just chronologically have these different categories. It's very, very simple. It's very, very straightforward. Okay. It just goes down here. Now, there's actually a couple of mistakes on this resume. A couple of things that, you know, a resume reviewer, an HR person might say, I might reject this resume for this reason. Can anyone take a look at this resume and tell me what's wrong with it?
The formatting is incorrect. They're not lined up.
Thank you. So where did you see the I mean, there's a couple. What was the first formatting error that you saw?
The time that they worked, their experience is not. There's somewhere of 1994.
Yeah.
Somewhere in 1993. So they're not in chronological order, and also it's like hard to read.
Exactly. So, folks, you can see that like summer of 1993 bleeds down to the next, line. Summer of 1994 is not lined up with KTLA News. This person actually has some decent experience in journalism, and this would be a decent resume. But what a hiring manager is going to say, this person didn't even review their own resume. This is unprofessional. If they're writing something for us, this is going to be a nightmare for me to have to proofread everything they turn in. So it's amazing that I get resumes all the time, and HR people constantly tell me that they cannot believe that they see even spelling errors, and we all have a spelling check. So folks, when you write your resume, regardless of what format you use, make sure that not only you review it, but get somebody that you trust, somebody you think who's pretty good at writing. A counselor at AIU, whoever it is that you can get to review the resume, make sure that they review it. If you're the only one looking at it, that's not good enough. Okay? This could be a decent resume had they just made a few different corrections. But this is a chronological resume. It's just very straightforward down the middle. Now let's take a look at functional. Now, a functional resume, folks, this is if you don't have experience in that given profession that you're trying to obtain. So again, this is a person who wants to be a journalist, but they've never been paid to be a journalist. It is perfectly appropriate to put down qualifications. So let's say this person's, doesn't even have any experience in college, but they were the editor of their school newspaper. They did class projects. This is the coursework that they took. So they're just listing qualifications that they have for the job. All right. So if you don't have any experience, but you do at least, have gone to IU and college and so forth, but you can put a qualification section and get a counselor to help you with this. And I would definitely put a qualification section first, right after education, before experience, even if you have any experience, doing something else that isn't applicable to the job that you're applying for. So this is what we consider a functional resume. You don't have experience, but you can put qualifications there. So just know for this type of resume, it's okay if you don't have experience. I mean, it'd be nice if you did, but if you don't, hey, shoot from half court, put down a qualification section. Then you have a combination. This is a person who has experience in one area, but then they have additional experience in other areas. So this person is putting the experience as a journalist working at KTLA News and for the UCLA newspaper, but they also have additional experience doing other things. It's nice to divide that up. Resume reviewers and hiring managers say, okay, I can see what you're doing here. You're showing me that you have applicable experience in this job. But you also did other things just to pay the bills. That shows that you are a hard worker, that you're constantly doing things in order to just pay the bills, and that shows a nice work ethic. So it's not only appropriate to do a combination resume, it actually can benefit you. Wow, this person did other things to make money because that means they work hard, and they also have experience in this particular position. So using the title additional experience is appropriate and can certainly be advantageous. Finally, let's take a look at functional combinational. This means you have no work experience in the job that you're applying for, but you do have work experience doing other things. Once again, you would put qualifications first. And then you would put additional experience underneath, okay? And so you can do that as well. Now, these are the most basic, simple types of resumes. All right, these are the basic, simple types of resumes that have been used for years and years and years. And I wanted you to be familiar with the basics. But for instance, like a good basketball player will know the basics. They can dribble, a person can shoot, from the foul line, they can pass. But if they want to make the all-star team, they're going to have to do some things that are more than just basic. We talked about earlier 2 columns. We talked about earlier other things. So take a look at this one. So this one is 2-column. This is a resume that actually led to a person getting a very good position. And this is also breaking the rules a little bit because they did include references, at least a couple on the resume. Now, again, some folks would say this is a little bit too busy. There's almost too much information. But you can see that it certainly is different from these traditional formats. Now, imagine you're looking at this and this and this, and then boom, you see this. At least it's going to catch your eye. It's at least going to be somewhat different than the other kinds of resumes that you have been looking at if you're trying to find somebody to hire. Now, again, this might be a little busy. Some resume counselors would say remove references, and they'll ask you for that upon request. I probably would recommend maybe just having one quote from one person on a resume. But the main thing I wanted to show you here is that at least this person has numbers on the right-hand side. Increased productivity 25% and saved us over 50% of our time. These are some of the kinds of numbers that you can use on your resume, even if you put it in the experience section. So what are things that you can put as numbers on your resume, like this person did? You can talk about how you increase profits. If you can't say that, you can talk about how you increase productivity. Or at the very least, did you save your boss or your colleagues time? Time is just as valuable these days as money. I had somebody I was trying to hire. I called their former boss. He told me, oh, she saved me 25% of my time. I hired her on the spot. So think about it. You can rack your brain in, even if it was in school, it was a part-time job, whatever you did. One person said, I did a church project. I don't have much work experience, Todd, but I did work as a volunteer at my church, and I was able to get 100 people to show up at this event. And I'm pretty sure that I saved my church a great deal of time. I said, great. We figured out, he saved the church about 30% of their time, and he got 100 people to show up to an event. That shows leadership, saving people time. So let me pause right now, and I'd just like for one or two of you to just think right now. Did you ever increase profits for somebody? Did you ever save time for somebody? Or did you ever increase productivity for somebody? And if one or two of you would be willing to share, say, you know what, I think when I was doing this kind of work or this kind of project, I saved, this company this much time, or this people, just give me an idea. So once again, this person said, oh, increased our productivity 25% and saved us over 50% of our time. Would any one of you be willing to share, hey, I think I did something similar to that in this situation? And this is something that I could put on my resume as a number. Anybody?
I could, but I can't quantify with a number. That's the same thing we discussed in the previous workshop, I believe, with about interviews. Yeah, the 3 stories about how you save somebody time, or
Yes.
Mine was somewhat time related. A manager told everyone that they don't need to come up and check on the whatever area we worked on, because I was there. So I didn't have to be there because they relied on me to do everything, take care of business, all that.
So let me ask you this, sir. If you had to guess how much time you saved them, just had to guess, what do you think it would be for a percentage?
A percentage? Let's say go around all floors. Yeah, 15% maybe.
Okay. All right. So this is what I would suggest you do. And this is what I would suggest for all of you. When you're thinking of a percentage of 0 to 100% of how much time you saved a person, you can see what he just did, and thank you for sharing. You kind of have to guess it first. It's like, probably around 15%. I would probably round it up to 20. And then you would call your former manager and say, listen, I'm going to put on the resume that I saved you folks 20%. Is that okay? You get permission.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you get permission. But if you tell your boss or your former manager, I think, then it makes it so much easier for them. So instead of saying, well, how much time do you think it's like, I'm busy. They don't want to have to think about it. Just say, listen, I'm going to put down on my resume that I saved you guys 20% of time. Is that okay with you? Do you agree with that? And if they say yes, thank you. How are you? How are things going? So if somebody now calls your former operation and asks, yeah, he saved me 20% of my time. You've already had that conversation.
It's already in his head.
It's already in his head. It's already done. It's on the resume. It's confirmed. That's how you go about it. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
And that's exactly what, folks, you could do on a resume. Just a few more frames here, folks. So moving on. So Just quickly about cover letters. All right, this is going to be much quicker, I promise. Again, you can put numbers on there. Highly, highly suggest. Reference. You can put something maybe at the bottom, one of them. Does it relate to the job? Know something about the history of the company you are applying to. Mention something about the history of the company you're applying to. And acknowledgement. I'm going to give you an example here in just a second. Don't repeat what's already on the resume. Don't repeat what's already on the resume. Now, that's somewhat difficult, but say, well, Todd, I worked at, Microsoft, and it's on my resume. I can't say that in my, cover letter. Of course you can. But maybe you'll say something different about Microsoft on your cover letter versus what you said on your resume. So if Jane Doe said on her resume, I saved Microsoft 20% of their time. On her cover letter, she could say, I increased profits for this particular project by 10%. So you can mention the same company that you're working at or the same institution that you went to school at, but you can mention a different achievement. So this is where I want you to think about when it comes to cover letter rules. Obviously, if you've only, like one guy said, Todd, I've worked at the same place for 10 years. I have to mention it on my cover letter and my resume. I mean, there's no way I can't repeat that. No problem. But the accomplishments, the achievements on your resume can be different than the cover letter. But again, having numbers on your resume and then numbers on your cover letter, extremely important. And in an interview situation as well. Hopefully we'll have a workshop about interviews at some point. But for instance, when I say, tell me something about yourself, a person says, oh, hey, I'm great and I'm good and I'm very hardworking and I won't let you down. That's how most people answer, who they are, what have you. Versus somebody who says, I increased productivity for my last company by 30%. And I will do exactly the same for you. Having numbers in your answers, numbers on your cover letter, numbers on your resume. Okay? So, go here. Yes, go ahead.
Does rule number 2 apply here? Customize to the job? We should customize each cover letter for the job, like change it up a bit?
Absolutely customize each letter to the job. So always related to the job for rule number 3, that having even a little bit about the history of the company. So one of the things, folks, is on a cover letter, and you can do this much more easily on a cover letter than you can on a resume, is why do you want to work there? If it looks like a standard cover letter, to whom it may concern, I really would like to have this job and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's like every single cover letter that they read. If you can find out who the decision maker is, again, dear Susan Tan, congratulations at International American University has recently been accredited. It's like, oh, they actually know something about IAU.
I see.
Wow, thank you for, congratulating us. And, and it's not that hard to do. It used to be a lot harder to do, folks. We have something called the internet now. If you look up the job and you look up the company on the internet, they will tell you recent accomplishments, recent things that a company's doing. Oh, you're applying to Nike shoes. Oh, I love this new shoe that you guys are putting out, next month called the Wizard shoe or whatever. Mention something about the company. Mention something about them. So that's how you customize it extremely to that position. And of course, you highlight the achievements that is going to coincide with the job description. All right. Thank you. Very good question. So here is an actual cover letter that I helped review for a client of mine. And yes, this led to him getting the job. Okay. So I won't read the whole thing here, but he did find out who the decision maker was. So he said, dear John Smith, whoever it was, he absolutely has numbers in here, and he absolutely has an ability to have a quote at the bottom. So even with a cover letter, you have a quote. And even though I reviewed this, once again, thank God he got the job, but there's a mistake here. Can anybody see the mistake? I'll go ahead and tell you. If you look at the quote at the very bottom, he doesn't have a period between organizer and I. Okay.
Oh, we couldn't see that because of that tab on top of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you guys could see the tab. I didn't thought you couldn't see the tab. So I reviewed this. I put it out there. I'm like, dude, because I was his reference. He's like, oh yeah. I said, I reviewed this for you. We went through this. Blah blah. Now he got the job. Thank goodness. And his job included writing. But again, folks, I don't know how often. Probably over 50% of the time when I look at cover letters and resumes, I see some kind of mistake like this. So anybody else who's looked at resumes, I would just be curious to know, what percentage of time do you see a mistake? Could be something, formatting, grammar, spelling. I see it all the time. So Susan, the rest of you who look at resumes, what is your take on it? How often do you see a mistake?
I can't really quantify that, but I would say often.
Okay, so yeah, there you go, folks. So it happens a lot, and maybe some people are more lucky than others, but please review. But for the cover letter, so make sure you have a number in there. I would recommend having maybe just one quote, not a full reference. They know you have lots of references. You don't need to say references available upon request, but have just maybe one quote, one thing, one person saying something good about you at the bottom of the page. And the main way I would do that is I would say to a person, I'm going to quote you saying that I did this. Is that okay if I say that? Yeah, sure. I mean, if you ask them, you think they're going to say yes. But, just think of a person right now who would be willing to say that you are outstanding, or you save them 20% of their time, or you increase productivity 25%, or they have a willingness to say something about that about you. Okay. And if they're willing to say that about you, then you put that quote. Okay. You put that there. All right. So, okay. Lastly, I want to show you.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Thank you. May I ask, do we need to put a date on the cover letter?
I would say, yeah, go ahead and do that because of formatting. I've actually asked people about that, and I just say that some HR managers might refuse you that you don't. Obviously, he didn't there. So, yeah, go ahead and put a date just to be safe. So the answer is yes. I don't think it's a big deal, but some people do.
Thank you.
Now, I know good question. I know that we're living in the era of COVID, so you can wear a mask. This is my recommendation. Obviously, you cannot do this all the time. Show up in person, and this is very important little phrase at the end, if you can. If you can't, I understand. Todd is too far away. I'm applying to too many positions. Can't do it. Got it. Show up in person if you can. It is much, 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 much easier to refuse a piece of paper than it is to refuse a human being. This person came all the way down. And I would go so far, I was at a pancake house when I was visiting Bakersfield. And this guy came in and he went up to the cashier. He said, I hear you need a dishwasher. And the cashier said, yes, we do. Okay. Who's hiring for that position? The man who's hiring for that position, his name is Mike. Oh, is Mike here? She said, no, he's not here right now, but you can give me your resume. He said, no, that's okay. I'll come back and I'll give it to him when he's here. Now, I don't know what happened, but I guarantee you that guy got the job. He could have left his resume with the cashier. He's going to come back and he's going to meet the hiring manager, the gatekeeper, the decision maker. He was smart. He clearly wanted that job as a dishwasher. Good for him. Nothing wrong with washing dishes. I washed dishes in high school. Good old-fashioned labor. If you can go there in person and say, is Miss Susan Tan here? Is, Joe here? Is, who's here? May I say hi real quick? Now, if they say no, you need to give me the resume, then okay, fine. At least you tried, and give them the resume to the person at the front desk or whoever. But if you have the opportunity to, do this, it just, it's professional. Do it professionally and make sure you dress well. But if you can't, you can't. But does that make you stand out? Somebody said, Todd, it's my dream to work for Apple. That's been my dream to work for Apple computers since I was a kid. I wouldn't send your resume by email. I would try to go there in person. If you can. Finally, follow up. If you can find the person's LinkedIn, you can find the person's email. You don't want to be too obtrusive. I do know some people who go so far as to make a phone call. I think that might be a little too obtrusive. I think that can backfire, but it's perfectly fine to just send an email. I sent you my resume. If you need any other information, please let me know. Thank you so much and have a great day. I appreciate this opportunity. Maybe, Todd, I already did send them an email by sending them my resume. Yeah, it's okay. Wait a day or two and just, give them a little, reminder that you sent it, you appreciate it, and you hope that you're considered. I've gotten people who've gotten jobs from me because of that. They followed up. I could tell they really want it. They're passionate about it. Okay. Now, I just want to get a vote from everybody, and you can just say yes or no. Do you have a LinkedIn page? And you can just either say yes or no. Who's first?
I have one.
Okay.
I don't.
Somebody says they don't. Anybody else?
I have one.
You have one? Okay. Does anybody else not have one? Okay, so what I would do with your LinkedIn page is, number one, if you don't have one, please get one. And again, the main thing that you can do is you write down a reference or an endorsement or, something of that nature that you would like for somebody to say. You write it for them. You write the recommendation for yourself by them. You then give them a call, or you email them, or you contact them the way you contact them and say, listen, will you please post this on my LinkedIn page? It's already written for them. And you can tell them, if you don't like what I wrote, you can change it, but I've already written you first draft. Most people are just going to copy and paste what you wrote and post it. That's how LinkedIn works. So it's great that you have a LinkedIn page. I highly recommend it. The second thing is, do you have at least 3 or 4 people who've written your recommendation endorsement on LinkedIn that also have a membership to that media source? Write it for them, send it to them, and then post. Okay? So these are different ways to reinforce your cover letter and to reinforce your resume. And again, before you start sending things out, maybe you can't have a counselor or somebody review every single resume you send out. I don't know how many counselors are going to review 100 of your resumes, but have at least a few basic resumes, a few basic cover letters that can be reviewed by somebody that you trust. And then little mistakes like this won't happen, and you've already enhanced your ability to get a job. All right? Any questions? If you do, you can contact me. This will be recorded, so you have this particular format of the cover letter and the different resumes that you have seen. Thank you very much, folks. If you do these things, never once, and all the time I've been doing this, if you follow these rules and you send out enough resumes, you will get a job, or you will get that internship, or you will get that interview. It's simply a numbers game. For anybody who's ever called me and said, Todd, this isn't working, how many have you sent out? Oh, 5 or 6, 10 or 12. Usually it takes 20, 25 minimum. I've never had somebody who sent out 100 didn't get a response. Hopefully you don't have to send out that many. I'm just saying that's extreme. Having said that, this works. All right?
Excuse me, I have questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, for the cover letter, is that required for the resume or just optional?
I would always, always, always include at least something like this. The reason is that if you just send a resume, it really is amazing how it has a psychological effect. That, oh, this person, how badly do they want it? They sent me a resume. Like, can you imagine, imagine, miss, that you are hiring for somebody and they just said, here's my resume, thank you. Oh, well, thanks for the resume. Okay. I mean, versus somebody attaches my resume. You will greatly benefit me from considering this position. I appreciate your they actually take the time to write you a letter, even if it's just an email format. So thank you for asking that question. I'll always include at least a short letter like this or some kind of cover letter, in my opinion, unless the job description absolutely, totally, emphatically says, do not include a cover letter. Even then, I'll at least write a couple of sentences in an email. It may not be a full cover letter, but say, attached is my resume. Thank you so much for considering this. I mean, at least write something. But I have never hired anybody that says, here's my resume, Dr. Eller. Thank you very much. Bye. Okay. It just seems too cryptic. Make at least some kind of effort. Go ahead. Somebody wants to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you said sometimes hobbies and such, we shouldn't include them in resumes. What about in cover letter, especially if it's an entry position, we don't have much to, go on, like, experience?
Yeah, I think that, again,
relates to the particular job, I mean.
If it relates to the job, then absolutely. Like, I'm applying to, Adidas, and I'm saying, hey, I coach wrestling. They're going to like the fact, well, that relates to job. That's a hobby of mine. So I do agree with this kind of notion that when somebody talks about a hobby that has absolutely nothing to do with the position and nothing to do with me and nothing to do with life, I'm just like, well, how does this benefit me? So I wouldn't include it for that reason. So I do know this, folks. Listen, whether we want to admit this or not, when somebody's reading your cover letter and when somebody's reading your resume, they're thinking one thing and one thing only, just one. How does this benefit me? If it doesn't benefit them, they do not care. Now, again, that, I keep picking on Susan today. That Susan Tan is a champion bowler. May not have anything to do with her. I don't know if she is or not. I don't. But I'm just making that as an example. Let's say she is. Then you mention that in your cover letter. Absolutely. Because it does benefit to have somebody around the office of similar interests. Oh, that's great. I have somebody to talk to bowling about. But otherwise, I do agree with my colleagues. If it doesn't benefit them, then okay. Now, when you say, well, Todd, I've done volunteer work for my church. I do volunteer work for the Salvation Army. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Put that kind of stuff, because that shows that you are a charitable person. It shows that you work hard. That benefits the company. It benefits them that you do that kind of stuff. So, absolutely. And if you've, competed at the Olympic Games. It shows that you are a hard worker. So you can choose, but it's like, I enjoy, so when I say hobbies, it's not like, oh, well, Todd, but I won a championship in college in soccer. Absolutely include that, because that shows you work hard, you're dedicated, you're disciplined. When I say hobbies, I enjoy hiking. Once in a while, I do Pilates and I do hot yoga. That's all very nice and well and good,
Yeah.
but they just don't care. But it's like, no, Todd, I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Oh no, absolutely. That's more than a hobby. That's an accomplishment. That's an achievement. That's something that you should be proud of. It shows that you work hard. And if somebody tries to rob the office, it's nice to have you around. So, that kind of thing, yes. But, when I say hobbies, it's just like, occasionally I like to bake cookies. Well, this is all very nice and well and good. Can we stick to the script here? So, excellent question, but that's what I would say.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Anything else, my friends?
Next, thank you for the answer. Another question is for the reference. What if my working experiences, some of my working experiences are out of the country, is overseas, and what if what is the minimum reference for the resume, or 2 or 3, or what if I have work experience in US, but I left that company, and someone said some good words for me, but I would like to put the quote on my resume, but they already left the company.
Okay, great. Okay, okay. So you got a lot of questions here. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of them, but this is what we're going to do. And I offer this to anybody. Okay, so let me go ahead and put this on here. Okay, so you have multiple questions. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to answer your questions, which is number 1, the minimum references. Okay, folks, I would always have a minimum reference number would be 3, and that's minimum. So you have 3 people on your LinkedIn account who've written something for you, or you've written it for them and they post it after they've approved it. You always have 3 different people that somebody can call, that you have letters from, endorsements from. That's minimum. Always have 3 people in your back pocket that will always, back you up, and you already have 3 letters of reference from them. That's the first thing. And I would always have 3 stories that you can tell in an interview situation about your achievements. We've talked about that before. Now you start talking about, well, what if I have people overseas and this and that? This is, sounds like it's kind of complicated. But number 1, it's totally fine to have references from overseas. I get people all the time say, well, I worked in, Japan. I worked in Taiwan. It happens all the time. That's fine. I understand that. You just got to the United States. I don't care. If somebody does care, then I would say, that's I don't want to work for that person anyway. We should always be open and very, very not only accepting, but celebrating people who have international experience, because that brings a lot of value to the table. So if you have references from overseas, good for you. Be proud of that. If you have some references in the United States, great. Now, it sounded like you got in, there were some more complex questions that you have. This is my email, folks, and I'm offering this to everybody, that, if you have like a more complicated situation, hey, Todd, this is what's going on here, and I don't know what to ask, and I do have a boss, but I'm not sure what to ask him or her, and, you just have some nuances that you need straightening out. Here's my email. Email me. We can set up a person-to-person call. I will help you. So it sounds like your situation's a little complicated, so I will help you. All right? I will, for any one of you, it's fine. We'll set up a time, we'll get this done, and I'm more than happy to help. But I hope I gave you some information to answer some of those questions. But if you have something a little bit more complicated, needs a little bit more massaging, then there's my email, folks, and I'd be more than happy to, get that straightened out for you. Any other quick questions now? Anything else?
Thank you very much for
No problem.
Yes, I have another quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mostly it's gonna be emailing resumes and cover letters. I attachments or pasted in the body of the email?
Don't paste it. Oh, thank you. That's an extremely good question. Extremely good question. Don't put it in the body of the email for this reason. I've had person after person, even when I'm just sending them a legal document or a contract, they say, "Oh, Todd, can you send me an attachment?" There's just a million different reasons why putting it in the body of the email often doesn't work. So what I would suggest you do is a PDF file or a Word file as an attachment. That way that they can copy it much more easily. So imagine if you are an HR person and somebody puts it in the body of the email, you have to copy that and put it in the file. It makes it more difficult. It's like, oh, is it a JPEG? Is it this? It just makes it a real pain for the person trying to download it. What they're doing is they're taking that file, whether it's a PDF, Word, or what have you, and they're putting it into a folder. It makes it much easier for them if it's an attachment. Okay, I didn't even think to say that to you guys, so that's an excellent question. So I would put it as an attachment, that this is attached, but don't use anything fancy. PDFs are pretty safe because they're usually can be opened easily. I've had a lot of people, they send me a resume, I can't open it.
I see.
I don't know what kind of file that is. Oh, I use this or that. They use something kind of fancy, or they use Note, or I don't even know what they do. So I would say PDF, PDF, PDF. Because if you have Microsoft Word 97 and that's not compatible with Microsoft Word 2010 or whatever it is, then they're like, and I don't have the time to email this person and say, I didn't get your resume, I couldn't download it. But PDF seems to be pretty universal. So that's a technical question. I didn't think to answer that. So very, very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I would recommend a PDF attachment.
For both?
Yes. No. Let me say this. I'm sorry. For the resume and for the cover letter as well. But in the body of your email, have a mini cover letter.
I see.
So it's okay to be redundant. So for your cover letter, you would have something like this, but in the body of the email, you would have something similar to this. This is okay to be redundant with cover letters. You would have something similar to this in the email. Like, thank you very much, blah, 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 attaches my cover letter and email. So you make it convenient for both, okay?
I see.
So that's extremely good question. So let me go ahead and write that down. This is a very, very good question. Number one, PDF. You have resume and cover letter as a PDF. And then in the body of the email, you have kind of a mini cover letter. So that would be the ideal format, in my opinion, just for the technical minutia. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't think about to talk about the technical stuff. So that's what I would do for this kind of format if you're having to email resumes. And of course, if you hand in your resume in person, have a cover letter and your resume in a nice 8.5 by 11 envelope with the person's name on the envelope and from and blah, blah. Okay. Any other questions, my friends?
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Such a great presentation, by the way. I really love the points and so much to learn. I had a question about being a little bit more creative when it comes to telling people about yourself. So, what is your take on creating a video resume, just a 2-minute short, quick video telling people who you are, where you are in the life right now, and what you want to do in future? What do you think about that?
Tremendous, stupendous, amazingly great, and incredible idea. So we're living in the social media world. It's amazing to me how you can create videos so easily now. And what I would say for that is if you have a 2-minute opportunity, that I would make it 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long. And you can get very creative with it. What I would say is that use types of images and types of music, if you can even do that number one isn't copyrighted. So, I like Vivaldi because, something 1,000 years old or however old that music is, it can't be copyrighted. Having said that, it's a tremendous idea. So you want it to look good. What I would do is you would write a script, show it to different people, have different versions of it, make a couple of videos, and then you would have colleagues and friends and people that you trust vote on which version they like the best. So people are always much more successful in life if they A/B test. So, hey, here's a video. I have A, B, and C. Look at video A, look at video B, look at video C. Which one do you like the best? And the more people you get to vote on it, the better. And let's say everybody likes video B. Hey, 80% of you like video B. Okay, that's the video I'm going to use. So you can think of 2 or 3 versions of a video that you use. But having a video of yourself, talking about yourself, who you are, tremendous. And you can put that on your LinkedIn, you can put that on your Facebook, and you can even consider sending that to somebody that you're applying for. Again, you will judge for yourself. Do you think that that would be too much or too obtrusive? But I think I would always be impressed by that, especially if it looks good. Now, the only warning I have about that, make sure it's a decent looking video. If it is poor quality, if you don't look good, you don't sound good, it can backfire. There was a lady who sent a video like that to us at a former institution, and it was just very poor. And her resume was actually pretty good, but it backfired because it wasn't good quality. Somebody else, they did something very clever. They didn't videotape themselves. They just videotaped pictures fading in and out of the video, because having really high quality video can be kind of expensive, and just doing it on your cell phone or something like that, it can look kind of cheap. What this person did is they got really good looking photographs of themselves going from graduation to working to playing, achieving something in a sport, and narrating it and having music. And it would fade in and out, and apparently it's pretty easy to do that, but it actually looked pretty good. So make sure that you can do something like that that just maybe looks professional. If it doesn't look professional, it'll backfire. But overall, I think it's an extremely good idea to do something like that.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
No problem. Anything else? Okay, folks, if you have further questions, because you'll probably think, oh, I should have asked Todd this, or I need help with that, or I have there's my email. Let me know. We'll set up a time. I will help you. Okay. And I'm not saying this to impress you, but to impress upon you. I wrote my dissertation on resume writing. Resume writing can be very, very boring, but it also, again, leads to a job. And even if it's not about resume writing, hey, Todd, I need help with interview, or I don't know if I should go for this job, or just, whatever it is. We are here to help you. Let me know. I really, really appreciate it, folks. Stay safe. Hope your family continues to stay safe. I hope to hear from you, and we'll do another workshop soon.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.